Hi and welcome back to our mini lectures on organising. This is part 2. In this mini lecture we're going to start to unpack the major organisational structures that exist in organisational design. Your job is to start to compare the advantages and disadvantages of each of those structures. So let's talk about the common organisational designs that exist. The first design I want to talk about is a functional structure. This is where groups of people come together with similar skills who perform similar tasks. So for example, you have a HR department, you have a finance department, you have a strategy department, you have a IT department. The advantages of being able to group people at a functional level is that it achieves economies of scales. It allows us to allocate assignments with the expertise and training. So for example, in a HR team, you may need to combine someone that's got employment relations expertise, but also someone with a mediation, interpersonal skill expertise. They may not be the same person, but in that team, within that organisation, you know exactly who's who and who you have to choose from. So it's easier to allocate tasks in the right way. We're also able to have high quality technical problem solving because again, we have that IT department and we have the ability to connect and really think more deeply about functional related issues. We're also able to tailor training much more. So for example, if in the HR team again, I see a deficit in a knowledge about a specific type of law, I could bring a lawyer in to talk to that team. Now, I'm not going to get the same level of outcome if I have an interdisciplinary team than if I have a functional team in that situation. So functional structures work. I'm also able to communicate a clear career path within the function. So for example, someone's able to say, I want to be I'm a HR support officer, I want to be a HR officer, now I know I need to be HR manager, and from HR manager I'm general manager, and then from general manager I can go this level. Whereas with your other structures, that career path clarity isn't always there. So a functional structure works really well in structured environments. The disadvantages is that you might have multiple people on the same job. So for example, in the payroll team, you may have a finance manager, but then you might have 5 payroll officers. And those payroll officers share duties. So it's really difficult to pinpoint responsibilities when you have multiple people working on the same thing. You also tend to have functional chimney problems, and also known as silos. So for example, our strategy team might not be talking to our HR team, yet they could be developing a strategic workforce plan, for example. Or our IT system team isn't talking to our IT operational team, and those two teams don't always connect. So it does end up being quite challenging at times to encourage those informal networks that exist between people, because we tend to find a lack of communication between the sections unless it's forced. So within organisations, this is what a functional structure looks like. So we have a managing director, and then we might have a director of marketing, director of finance, director of production, director of HR. Or in the university system, we have a vice chancellor, a deputy vice chancellor, and deans for each of the business schools. And we work our way down through there. The other organisational design structure that exists is a divisional structure. And a divisional structure groups together people working on the same product in the same area, or with the same customers, or involved in the same process. The idea is that in complex organisations, you need an interdisciplinary team. So this structure allows this interdisciplinary nature of the team to exist. And in doing so, it adds the flexibility to responding to environmental problems. So for example, if you have an issue where you need a HR person, a finance person, a strategy person, and an expert in law, then in a division you may already have those to your advantage, and they might already work really well together. So it does give you that flexibility to respond to those problems. It also allows more coordination between departments, because all of a sudden people are forced to work together. So people tend to talk to each other when it's in a formal team. And again, I refer you back to our formal and informal structure. In this circumstance, we're only talking about formal structures. It allows us to also pinpoint exactly who is responsible for what. And that's important because we no longer have 5 people doing the same job. We may only have 1. So if something doesn't get done, we know who to blame. And we also are aware of the workload accountability. So for example, if in that team that one person is overworked because we're getting a lot of different pressures from different areas, a manager is easily able to manage that. Whereas in another team, it may not be. It also allows us to change organisational sizes quite easy and responsive to market demands. So divisional structures are really useful in complex organisations because it allows us to have much more freedom in the way in which we operate. The disadvantages is that it costs more, right? So if we're thinking about having an interprofessional team and a HR person allocated to each division, or a finance person, strategy person, or even just a manager, we actually have to have that extra layer, and therefore we have increased costs and we have more people working for us than we'd normally have. So it reduces our economies of scale. It may also promote this unhealthy rivalry between divisions because naturally as human beings, we need to compete. So if one division is doing something innovative and another division isn't, then that may actually breed some unhealthy rivalry. Nevertheless, divisional structures are quite successful as well. And this is what a divisional structure could look like. So it could be based on product, where you have grocery products versus your drug and toiletry products. Could have it geographically, so one area, Australian to European division. You could have it based on customers. You could have it based on process. There are all different features of divisional structures that are available. Now, matrix structures came along because basically they wanted to combine the benefits of a functional and a divisional approach. Right? The idea is let's emphasize project and program teams in this organization, and as a result, I need a HR expert, I need an interprofessional team expert, and I need lots of things happening. So a matrix structure began. The advantages is that there's lots of more cooperation between departments. Because you might be in your functional design, usually you sit in the HR department or finance or strategy or IT. However, there's a project that comes along that needs to actually have a selection of all of you. So then all of a sudden you're on this project. Now you are accountable to the project manager, but you're also accountable to your boss. So that's where your 2 bosses come into it. So it does allow for more cooperation, and it allows for better customer service and performance accountability, as well as improved decision making and strategic management. But at the same time, it really does stress your employees out because all of a sudden they're accounting for both. It increased costs because not only do I have to do my job normally, I also have to do something else, and then I have to communicate twice. So I'm losing time in that process. And of course, I have to employ more managers. Very time consuming from an employee point of view to have to report to both, and the number of reports that are generated within this organization are typically double what would normally be reported. So this is what a matrix structure looks like. And as I mentioned before, you may sit up here where you are a manufacturing manager employee. So you live under this function, but in this particular case, you report to the project manager of this project. So you then have dual responsibilities. The other type of structure that exists is this thing called a team structure. Now, cross-functional teams bring together members from different functional departments. Basically, we all say, okay, we're going to work on this project, and the project may be something along the lines of developing guidelines for the effective use of, let's think about retail, so plastic bags. So how are we going to we need a team together to work out how I'm going to reduce waste of plastic within my organization. Now, in doing so, I'm going to put together a team, and they've got 6 months to come up with a suggestion, and in doing so, I need people from manufacturing, sales, engineering, human resources, finance, IT, everyone. And all of those people come together for that team, and then they just spark as soon as it's finished. But they don't actually have a reporting manager. So they only have one. So in a matrix situation, you would continue to report to that project manager and your boss. But in a team situation, what you actually end up doing is only reporting to that team manager or the project manager, and then you move on to another team. So you see this structure come out in a lot of consultants, particularly your larger consultancy firms, where you are waiting to be, as a consultant, you wait for a team, and then you go into that team, you work effectively in that team, and then you disband, and then you start a new team. So there's lots of companies that use this in a consulting firm. So KPMG, your PKFs, and your Ernst & Young, this is where they get their structure from. So there's lots of common organisational designs out there. You may have greater examples of functional, divisional, team-based and matrix designs that you can refer to, and I encourage you to do so. But what I hope that you get from this workshop is that, or this seminar, sorry, that each has their advantages and each has their disadvantage. Our job as managers is to work out which one belongs where, so we can put in place the right design at the right time with the right people. I look forward to seeing you next when we start to continue our conversation about organisational designs.